Welcome to Lead Live, reminding you of your personal genius and how you think in order to actualize what you desire. Good afternoon for many individuals, and for those of you in other countries, good morning, including one of our lead behind the scenes, Jet, who's in the Philippines. I want to say thank you for joining us again here at Lead Live for another important topic, personal leadership and why it is an imperative. And I'm honored to have two gentlemen. And in fact, I'm going to ask Jet to go ahead and bring them on the screen now, because the sooner the better we get into this topic, the more impressive I think we will honor your leadership, or more significant. We'll honor the significance of your leadership, I should say. So the topic is why personal leadership is always an imperative. We think in terms of leadership of an organization, and leaders touch all aspects of an organization. They set the tone, they define the direction, they design the structure, the architecture, build the culture, execute plans, monitor results, develop people, and so on. And yet, when we think about it, in our own personal lives, aren't we doing the same? I'm thinking about a loved one who literally passed, as we say in the Black community. She passed just recently, a couple of days ago. Beautiful spirit, was able to be here on the planet at least 90 years. And so a number of us are grieving in our own way, celebrating in our own way, and smiling inside because we can remember that beautiful smile of Janister, called lovingly by many people Mama Hosh. And this person set the tone. She provided a direction. She helped to build a family culture. She did much more that was leadership. And yet I don't think she ever thought of herself, knowing her, a humble spirit, as a leader. And we're all doing things within our households, within communities, even when we're at a grocery store, that demonstrates remarkable leadership in the face of maybe chaos, in the face of ugliness, in the face of pure joy. And we wanted to have a conversation about that, because we have a tendency of taking for granted our roles in our personal lives. And I know that we have a few questions from audience members who were given to us in advance about just that. Before we go to those questions, I'd like to ask both Nana and Mashama, or fondly called Shama, to provide us with a little introduction in terms of what they're doing together and why leadership is important to each one of them. So let's start with Shama. Go for it.
On what Nana and I's adventure has been over the last 15 years.
Yes.
So myself and Nana co-founded a company called 510 Media, where we help brands communicate to their target audience. I think with that, any entrepreneurial journey starts with a sense of leadership, because what you're saying is, I'm going to shun and walk away from sort of what everybody else is doing, and I'm going to go blaze my own path. And if you don't have that internal compass, internal motivation, internal drive, you just can't make it. So that's a little bit about what we're doing and the journey that we're on. Nana, anything?
And you can hear my dog is excited about it as well.
He's saying,
I was like,
I have
Nana, I was like, Nana, you got a dog, man? You tell me? What's going on here?
Come on, Bosco. Come on. You can pull out. Go ahead.
So let me say this. So also, in addition of having a company called 510 Media, which is focused on behavioral science branding, which is people-focused branding. So we kind of think about business through people as opposed to through systems, right? Or
Mm.
and we do use tools of data,
Mhm.
but we don't dismiss the value of people. So we combine those to gain accurate insights,
Mm.
about the particular market or our client or whatever services we're trying to provide.
Mhm.
In addition to that, because we work with so many corporations on how to improve business, how to improve the bottom line, how to show up different to their employees, how to change the work environment, how to lead differently, we created another nonprofit called 5T Media Hope. And Hope has been a program designed and dedicated to something that deals with my childhood, which is being a young black male growing up watching businesses go away. And so
Mm.
we wanted to focus on bringing businesses back.
Mm.
So we spent a lot of years gaining insights on some of the challenges that are stripping businesses from our community, and and developed this macro insight as well as this micro insight.
Mm.
And one of the things that we discovered on our journey, there's a few things. One is that quite often people place being an entrepreneur in a separate domain, not realizing being an entrepreneur or being a leader is a way of life. So as you
Mm.
improve leadership, you improve in your family relationships, you improve in business, you
Mm.
improve in community leadership, you improve your friendships, you even improve your relationship to your religion.
Mm.
We also discovered that quite often people have a problem claiming a title, and quite
Mm.
often it's because they're seeking approval. And you don't
Mm.
realize that the approval comes from just doing. It's like if you want to be called a writer, start writing. And over time, we will call you a writer. Right? But you can't ask us what I think what we're looking for is somebody to come along and give us an award and call us a writer before we call ourselves a writer.
Mm.
What we also don't realize is that when we all start a process, we're all imposters. When you first start, none of us are whatever we were trying to be, right? And
Mm.
it's okay. We have to embrace that. And through the journey, we become these type of things. And then
Mm.
last, the deep down wound that we're facing in African American community, but we also notice this in the Latin community. We also notice this in the Caucasian community. A lot of people don't feel like they're good enough. And
Mhm.
so if you don't feel like you're good enough, it's hard to claim that title. And you're gonna always
Mhm.
seek out somebody else to
Mhm.
validate you.
Mhm.
Or you'll put yourself in this role where you don't think that you're good enough to be that person. So even
Mhm.
when you are deep in the process of
Mhm.
evolving yourself, you still have a problem announcing yourself as a leader. So I
Mm.
think these are some of the challenges that we're witnessing around leadership as far as through some of the work we're doing.
You made me think
Absolutely.
about something a loved one shared some years ago. I don't even know why we were in conversation about roles. Maybe I was considering something or he was considering something. Brian, and he's the dad of two of my loving godchildren, and among many other children I have. And he mentioned his dad, who's General, 4 or 5 star General Monroe.
Oh,
And he said that my dad used to say, when you consider taking on a new role, you don't take on a role that you've done before, even if the position
Mm.
is a higher level position. If you've done it before, what's the point? Take on a role that you've never done before. And that's real leadership, where you're growing yourself into the role. And there was much more power to that statement. Yet I want
yeah.
to honor General Monroe, another love of my life. Just I have so many loves of my life, and you two have become loves of my life as well.
Thank you.
And it's easy to just embrace people who understand the power of leadership. It goes beyond just this title, as you say,
Yeah.
Nana, or the accolades that you may get. In fact, some people are doing brilliant work and they've never gotten accolades. They're
Yes.
doing it because there's a fire inside. There's a purpose. They're driven by that. They wake up to it. They go to bed and they are so alive in that space because
Yeah.
it's a higher calling. And
Yes.
so when we think about personal leadership, what comes to mind and why you two always come to mind is because I remember meeting you many years ago. How many years ago was that? You had just started your business, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well,
And
yeah. Yeah. About 10 years
yeah,
ago, 12 years ago.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't know your business was young because you were already kind of so rabid and focused in a good way around being collegial, being collaborative. And I saw these men and women in your space, and it was like, oh my God, I want to be here all the time. Brilliance. Young, old, and it was just great to see people who look like me, better than me, but look like me. And yeah, but no discount of myself, but just beautiful people. And so, what this notion of leadership, I didn't see you in a role with 510 Media. I saw you literally being yourselves in 510 Media. And then fast forward later, at least 12 years later, you've got this business that you envisioned then. And it reminds me, you prepare for tomorrow today. And you had prepared and were well prepared and going deep then for now. And it wasn't just business, it was your entire life. So when we think about personal leadership, you said something. I don't know if I remembered it clearly. You said something about the importance of recognizing that what you do overflows in all parts of your life. So can you two speak to that more?
Yeah, you must have.
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, well, I actually want to just say I think the two most important things about leadership, and this is in any aspect, whether it's your personal life or other, is one, leadership is cannot be assigned. Okay,
Word.
we've all worked in situations. We've all worked in situations where someone is our boss, but leadership is conferred. It's given, right? It's consent. And so you could have somebody who doesn't have the title, but is the leader, right? And so that's the number one part is it is about what you're doing and how you're showing up to other humans that they will decide to follow you, right? So that's the first part about leadership. The other part is that leaders go, and this is what you're describing about Nana and us in 510 in the early days. Leaders start their journey. They move, they're in action, and that action creates a gravity or a momentum that other people can see and say, oh, that person is doing something different. That person's moving in a certain way. That's interesting to me. And they gain enrollment that way. So this translates to your personal life. Are you leading your personal life? Do you have the same principle? Like, right? Are you holding to some principles and some values and say, this is how I want to show up in the room? And then every time I show up, I'm calibrating whether or not I showed up like I wanted to. And if I did, then great. And if I didn't, then I have work to do. Right? It has to come from the inside out. And that's why you see charismatic people like Nana, right? Like as soon as Nana steps in the room, you could tell he's a leader. I don't care who else is in the room. I don't care what CEO is in that room. He's going to make his presence known, and people will say, hey, like, what is going on with this guy? This is interesting, right? People will start to listen, right? People can then start to follow. So it's really more of an attitude of, are you willing to be vulnerable and start moving, start doing? Because it's all an iterative process. 12 years ago, you know, we were working with a thesis. We were working on a process. And today we use the same vehicle of the process. We're just at a different stage or place. So that's kind of how I would frame it.
I want to go back to something you just said, Mashama. You said, just go. Just go. And it's an iterative process. I think those two pieces are invaluable. Just go. Get unstuck. Just go. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just go. In fact, it's best if you're developing along the way.
It can't be perfect. There is no perfect.
Let me ask something that's going to be kind of
before you go anywhere, Nana, hold on. Mashama, what do you mean by iterative? I want people to understand iterative process.
I'll make this super simple. The first time you do something, you suck. The second time you do something, you suck a little less. Okay. So you keep doing it, right? Until you don't suck. Like now I'm just a 0, right? I was terrible. I was -10. I kept doing it. I kept doing it. I kept doing it. Now I'm like a 2, right? And you just keep growing and evolving through the process. And that's how you iterate, right? So every version you do, every time you talk, every time you write a speech, every time you take a photo, whatever creative thing, whatever you're building, you have to do it multiple times. In fact, thousands of times you're going to do the same thing over and over.
Yes.
And as long as every time you're getting a little bit better and you're learning, then you're growing into it.
Yes.
And so by the end, you've evolved, you've grown, right?
Nana, thanks for your patience. Go ahead.
Oh, no problem. I want to tap into something that we're reading Seth Godin's book called Practice. It's an excellent book. Seth Godin is one of our heroes in the branding marketing world. Rory Sutherland. Those are two individuals who are trailblazers in our industry. And Seth talks about this theory called juggling, and he teaches people how to juggle. And what he says is that what is the common mistake that happens with juggling is the person throws the first ball up in the air, and when they lunge to catch the first ball, they lose the ability to catch the second ball. So what he does with his individuals to help them learn how to juggle is he helps them just say, hey, look, I'm just gonna have you just throw the ball in the air, but I want you to throw the ball to a perfect point. And if you throw it to a perfect point, the catch will take care of itself. The purpose of this is that we have to separate process from outcome. This is where self-help fits a lot of people. This is why self-help, like the self-help culture, not self-help as an idea, the self-help culture, because self-help culture speaks to outcomes, right? Like if you do this is your outcome. Similar to when you get a job. I'm taking this job, so this outcome. I went to college for this outcome. I married this person for this outcome, right? And really, the true journey is separating the outcome from the process, because the outcome lives in the future is uncertain, meaning tomorrow something can happen and change everything. There is no guarantees. So you have to embrace the process for the sake of the process, not the outcome. You have to learn to trust the process. So for example, let's put it in the context of working out. If me and you went to the gym and hey, I say, hey, Dr. Webb, I want to look like that guy over there, and you were my trainer. This is your routine. This is how you have to eat, and this is how you have to work out. Now, the first day I work out and the first day I eat, I'm not going to see any results. Actually, the only way I'm going to get benefit from this, I'm going to have to trust this process you put me on for the next 2 years or 6 months or whatever amount of time it takes, right? If I don't trust the process, I try to cheat the process. So now I'm going to spend money on all these shortcuts. But when I cheat the process, I lose all the true deep benefits. And so if we learn that the process is okay for people out there who are Christians. I remember I grew up as a Christian. They used to say, learn to walk in faith. The faith process is faith. There is no the outcome you have, and the way you get comfort for walking a path of a process that you don't have a guaranteed outcome is when you walk the process for others. If you just walk it for yourself, then it's hard to take that long journey. But you'll be surprised how the journey shortens when you're showing up for other people. And so it's very important as we talk about processes that we don't put it in the context of guaranteed outcomes. Let the outcomes take care of itself. Learn to love the process for the rewards it offers, because that's the only thing you control.
Wow.
You don't control the outcome, but you do control the process.
That is powerful, and we have a different complementary perspective in that regards, and I'll be as explicit as I can. When I decide something, I envision it. It doesn't matter what it is. Let's just be simplistic and say it's a house. I envision the structure of the house, the grass around it, the chairs that are in wherever they're located, where the bedroom is. I envision it all, and then I release it. I already know that it's there, so I release it. So everything that I do is really now independent of it because it's already set. So I don't rely on being driven by it because it's already created. And every creation starts where? And the imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And then it comes to fruition, but it requires that we go, as Shama says, it requires that we engage, as you're making very clear, and consistently. And we can't cheat to get to that result. It's not possible.
I mean,
We
it also
undermine ourselves.
the thing that we found with the process, like for example, sometimes in our class, a student will ask us, what are the 5 steps or 6 steps to get from point A to point B? And sometimes my answer is, well, the answer is within the process. Meaning that we don't know, because we don't know the outcome and we don't know what we're going to learn from the process. It's almost a waste of time to try to control to try to define the outcome in every detail. Like the way you said it is accurate. But if you were to say, like some people, what we've seen in business is sometimes when people are choosing a certain outcome in their mind, if the process is offering them a different reward, they won't take it because they're locked on this outcome. As opposed to letting the process provide these rewards and insights and intelligence. Because, for example, if you ask me, Mashama, questions around some of the problems we're facing today as a business, in our first year, we looked at you like, what are you talking? We don't know how to even respond to this, right? What has allowed us to have the knowledge we have now is we've been traveling this process. Now, on the process, during the process, let's say let's go back to the gym analogy. So we're in the gym, and I say, Dr. Webb, you're my trainer, and it seems like my stomach's getting a little bit bigger now. I don't understand what's going on, right? What you would do is now you would examine my practice. You would say, okay, how often how many reps are you doing? How many days are you doing it? How often are you eating certain food? Okay, let's tweak this food. Let's tweak this diet practice. Let's tweak this exercise practice. And then all of a sudden we would get back on track within the process, right? So combining the value of practice, combined with process, combined with you don't own the future. None of us do. And we can enjoy life. It's the anxiety of trying to control the future is what compromises our ability to enjoy the process.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the future that we may experience with that unwavering investment in the process may outshine any imagining that I have. Yes. And that's why I get rid of it. I just imagine it. I'm clear. I have fun with it. I dance with it, as Mashama talked about previously. And then I let it go. And then keep moving.
The thing I think we have to also accept that in this equation, there's so let me share a kind of a parallel what you're saying, but it's the same, it's kind of the same outcome. If you talk to an athlete before they start a game, you talk to LeBron James the year that he lost the championship, he would tell you, I'm going to win a championship. That's called confidence, right? Confidence is comforting. Confidence is what we're supposed to have. Like when I started fighting Timmy, I had confidence I can build it, right? Timmy, I was going to build it, but I had confidence, which that's the fuel, that's that fire behind me. We're not taking away confidence. We're not challenging. Confidence is a beautiful thing. We should envision, we should have confidence. There's nothing wrong with that. But within that, otherwise, if you don't understand that you don't control the future, what will happen is you will begin to when you don't when the human beings have this deep desire to want to control the future, and often we replace it with hope and fear. And in this society, fear is a tool that the market uses all the time to make us purchase things we shouldn't be buying. Right? So in the day, you should buy these shoes, otherwise this person could be better than you. So you fear this person will be better than you, so you buy these shoes, right? And this is what the market. These are tools that marketers use all the time. This is the industry I'm in. But those tools can become so distracting to the point it takes you away from your own life. So you make the worst decisions, right? Let's say somebody gave you $10,000 seed money because they want to help you start a business. It's a strong chance you would spend a lot of that money just to prove that you're good enough, as opposed to drive towards where you're trying to go, right? When you have a poor relationship with the future, you have a poor relationship with fear. When you have a poor relationship with fear, you're more likely to take foolish risk over speculative risk. And that is I can't begin to tell you, like I'm speaking really macro here, but when that breaks down into like these micro hit points, what you'll find is that it gets to a point where it starts to hijack the way human beings think, a way we think as individuals, and we start to make these horrible decisions that compromise our decision making, right? And so it's important that we learn to develop comfort that we don't really control the future. If we can accept that, it changes all these philosophies, all these things we're hearing in society, even the way we look at Facebook and social media. It just changes everything. But we really have to process that. We don't control the future.
Yeah, I think the key thing is part of it is understanding that we influence. That's our role. We create. That's our role. We defer. That's part of our option. Yes. We don't have to control. In fact, we have a tendency of the Tao. There's a Taoist poem. I don't remember the poem, but the essence of it is there's this tree. And the question to the observer is this branch healthier than the other branch? And you see the branch that's really firm, unmovable, unbending, and people can sit on it and jump on it. That's the stronger one than the one that easily moves. And in reality, when a major wind or a force comes upon that tree, the branch that couldn't bend is broken. One that could bend actually is more viable. And so that's part of the process of living in life. When we understand that personal leadership is being as flexible as possible, recognizing this is what I desire, this is what I'm working towards, yet I'm going to trust the process that allows me to go and experience things. And when I experience things through reading, as you two are voracious readers, through experimentation, as we talk about, through other means of observing other people's own their experiences and learning from them through observations, then all of a sudden we may realize what I envisioned was short-sighted and insufficient. Now my vision is massive. And I'm getting to a place that I couldn't even imagine short of that process. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, go back to what you said, just go. Imagine most of us are looking for a guarantee. So that's why we don't take off. If we can accept that that's not what this is about. Like think about, so my artistic skills is I'm a photographer. And an
excellent photographer.
Thank you. And as a photographer, the way I developed my skills was I just went out there and took pictures. And I made a lot of, and I enjoyed the process of just taking pictures. Now, if I went out there and say, if I don't take a great picture in the next 10 pictures, I'm gonna quit. Yeah, I'm done, right? And that's kind of what compromises a lot of people on this journey. They jump in this process and they're looking for, people that are cheering on the side. Oh my God, look at you. You're doing a great job. 30 days of commitment, right? They're looking for, they're looking for every time they hit a hurdle, there's somebody going, hey, we're going to just open this door for you. Don't worry about it. We're going to fund you. We're going to support you. We're going to love you for this. They're looking for, and they don't realize, they don't realize it's a cold, quiet place. And it has to be internally motivated, right? It's like, I think even when we talk about this leadership, going back to the bigger question about leadership, a lot of the reason you have to really work on yourself to really run things exceptionally well, because most of the challenges is internal, not external, right? So like a lot of times we think our happiness is external. Nope, it's internal. A lot of times we think leadership is external. No, it's really internal. A lot of times we think that success external. No, it's really internal. It's absolutely internal. To think that money's going to give you success. Look, money can provide a certain degree of freedom, and wealth does, and wealth is a different discussion. But money can provide a certain amount of freedom. But what we found from our growth, if our freedom doesn't move past, we don't move past that point of freedom and move to how do we show up for others. That's where our happiness resides. Is my ability to show up for others make me happy, but that happiness, me understanding that happiness is more of an internal journey than an external journey. I mean that Dr. Webb can't give me happiness. Mashama can't give me happiness. I'm going to have to find my own happiness, and and I can't put that pressure on my kids, my wife, my dog. If I had one, I can't put that pressure on. So at the end of the day, we have to realize that's a personal journey that you have to go on. And then once you achieve that journey, and here's the funny thing: I learned this lesson when I was I think 22 or 23 years of age. I had a girlfriend, and I was like, "You make me so happy." And she says, "Okay, tell you what, I can't do that for you. And whenever you figure that out, maybe we can share our happiness." I was like, "Ooh, did you just?"
Well, cut to the chase. Let's be real. Yes, that is awesome. That's on point. Yeah. Let's go there for a moment. Both of you are in very loving relationships, and I'm so proud of you. You chose to show up and you chose to attract women who could honor you. And more importantly, for them, you're honoring them as well. And you've got these beautiful children, wherever their spaces are. And talk about how you show up in terms of your leadership, not your partners, but how you show up in terms of your leadership personally. This is important. I know what you do in the workplace. I want to hear some of what you do. I want to hear what you do in your households.
Shall we go first?
Hot button issue, huh? Okay.
Yes. Go for it.
I think the biggest thing is to show up every day with strength and vulnerability. So if you're choosing a life partner or a business partner, I'm always going to add business because I think they're parallel, especially if you're an entrepreneur. You have to show up and be vulnerable, and that means honesty. That means integrity. That means showing up when it sucks. That means not walking away from the conversation. And so it takes such a degree of like some things that are normally painful, right? So we all have trauma. No matter who you are, you have a trauma, or 10 or 20 or 100. And so oftentimes what we do is we build these characters of who we are in the world, right? Especially if we're trying to attract a mate, right? You're not going to sit down on a first date and say, "Hey, here's all my flaws and here's my traumas. Here's what I'm worried about. This is what happened to me when I was 5. You're never going to get into a relationship that way, right? So you build this brand that is who you are, right? And you go out in the world and you kind of try out different facets of that brand, and you're saying, "Hey, I show up like this. Okay, tweak it," until you get to this thing that is a representation, but it's only a slice of who you are. If you're going to commit to a long-term relationship, now you're not going to give everybody everything because that's impossible. There's a certain amount of your life that is just purely internal that you will be the only person that ever has access to it. But you go from maybe 20% to 80%. And you do that through the highs and the lows. Right. And so you commit to the growth together. Right. I think that's what leads people astray a lot of times is like, you're not committed to growing together. So what that means is one of you is leaning into the other, or vice versa. Right. Versus we are two people on parallel paths. So if I start reading and digesting and my ideas are changing and my mindset is changing, and my partner is just doing whatever they were doing 10 years ago, it's not going to work. It's an impossibility. So the reason why I think Nana and myself have found partners is we were signaling, this is who we are. The dynamics, the ever-changingness, the growth was a part of who we were, right? We were entrepreneurs. We were like swashbucklers. We were wolves out in the wild. Like, that's part one. So you have to be attracted to that. If you wanted like crazy stability, crazy certainty, 401ks and all this, then there's a whole different demographic that we would have attracted. And so you start with that nugget and then you evolve it and grow it. And so this is the last thing I'll say. I'm kind of rambling.
No, you're not. Go for it.
In your personal life, do projects with your significant other. These are teaching moments, whether you have a house, whether you want to make a garden, do projects together, because the communication it takes is invaluable. the external objective, right? If I want to build a raised bed, it's pretty clear, right? It's like, it's a box. This is what we're trying to do. You're going to have a way. I'm going to have a way, right? If we do it together, we have to increase our communication. We start to see how each other work. We see how each other problem solve. So these things then translate to the rest of your life. The last 5 years, my wife and I have been working on our house. And from the first project we did to like the last project we did, it's like we know each other so well now by doing that process and shortcutting and like sort of running into that work versus I show up how I show up, you show up how you show up. We got some cool things in common. We watch movies, we laugh. Sometimes we get upset, right? You're not doing the work together, right? And so projects, whatever you choose, doing them together allows you to like truncate the time that it takes to develop those internal communication and working skills and style skills to really grow your internal business, because your life is a business, whether you like it or not. You're the CEO. Hopefully the other person is like the CFO or the COO, or they bring some yang to your life, right? But there is no difference. There really is no like personal leadership is like there is no difference. Are you taking the reins of your life? Are you an active participant in your life? Are you always seeking growth? Is your partner always seeking growth and being an active participant in their life? Like these are the things that I think we just overestimate, right? Because of Hollywood movies, TV, they told you like these stories that like, oh, somebody's gonna sweep me off my feet and it's gonna be, it's gonna be this thing, or somebody's gonna play music outside my window. It's gonna be so romantic. It's like, that's not life. That's not life. Life is about work. Life is about stress and challenge and overcoming those challenges. When you overcome those challenges, it's better than anything, especially even in the personal realm, right? Like if you've ever had to have this is the last thing I'm gonna say, promise. If you've ever had to have a hard conversation with your significant other, like I'm talking about a conversation that strikes like, man, I don't know if this, this could be over. Depending on how this conversation goes, this could be over. Ripping out, the courage, the vulnerability, and just saying, here, this is what it is. This is where I'm at. This is what's going on. To show up to those conversations and have the other person show up with empathy and be receptive, and you guys find a way past that hurdle, it only makes the next time easier. So now you don't dread the conversation. You look forward to the conversation. The tough conversation is fuel for growth. For more coming together, for more collaborativeness, for like it's an opportunity instead of a challenge now, right?
Powerful.
And so then you onboard, whatever else you want to onboard, kids and all the other things. Now you're showing up to those conversations like, hey, I kind of think these things, this is my strategy, this is my belief. Okay. And you whittle them and you kind of play with them back and forth, but you look forward to the friction because you're getting to a better result than hiding from the conflict.
Love it. Love it.
And I'm done. Go ahead, Nana.
No, you're not done. Before we go to Nana, let me just honor some folks who are behind the scenes. Hello.
I'm sorry.
And one of my nieces honoring Grandma Hosh. Yes, Camille, thank you. And then Ivana, one of my old students. Oh, it's so nice to hear from you. Yes. It's an honor to have recruited you. I worked at Sonoma State University back in the 80s. My goodness. And then Dan Cohen. Oh, a remarkable, brilliant. Oh, my goodness. Talk about a writer, a thinker. Dan Cohen owns a remarkable communications organization. Thank you, Dan. And Maisha is loving this. Yeah, another remarkable individual. All these people, just great. And then Tomoko, your life partner, plays a significant role in supporting your dreams and goals. It is super important for your life partner to show emotional support. This is part of creating a life journey together. You got it. You got it. Right. So you want to answer that question, Nana?
I said back. This is such a big question. I mean, this could be right because there's really no separation.
Mm.
You know, I tell you some of I share some of my personal journey from my flaw to some enlightenment. When I first started running 510 I came out of a black household where control was the parenting style. So, you know, you do
Mm.
what I say, sit down, shut up, you know, go out there and cut the grass, don't say nothing to me, right? And you know, you don't realize how much that impacts the way you look at life. And so
Mm.
when I started running 510 Media, I was kind of harsh, right? Now I wasn't harsh. I was just my right arm, so I realized don't hurt your right arm because like you cut off your right arm, that sounds like a smart move, right? Especially if you're right-handed. And so Mashama didn't get my force and energy. And what I realized was it was partially my ego, right?
Mm.
And it was part of poor upbringing, poor ideas of leadership, and I had a huge ego. And
Mm.
so I started this journey of accepting one, I don't control people.
Mm.
That was a
Mhm.
huge one for me. Even the children, you don't control children. That's the craziest part. You still don't. If you try to over control them, you can damage them, right? Because you're taking that curiosity, that exploration, that sense of self, that sense of inner power. You're just stripping it down in the name of I want things to go my way, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I also realized that I had to develop intelligent forms of empathy. What I
Mm.
mean by that is that, you know, just you can have blind empathy. Oh my God, which is really kind of sliding into sympathy, kind of, right?
Mhm.
Um, but intelligent empathy is learning to listen, slow down all my responses, even like damper my emotional responses, and just kind of process. And also, and the reason that's important because when you're emotional reactionary, you can have
Mm.
all this knowledge and you just betray it all because you just quickly responding to everything, right? It's like, you know, in the black community we have these famous phrases. I wish somebody would. Of course, we put a lot more, and that means we're just quick to take off on somebody. But the flaw of that is that doesn't work in leadership nor family.
Mm.
And you know, there's only one requirement of our household is that everybody always grow. Now, let me explain that. We're always growing anyway, right? But it allows us to recognize that.
Mm.
So if we had this idea that, okay, let me tell you why that's different, why it's important to think that way. Most of the time we see humans as rocks. Oh, this is who you are. This is what this group does. This is what this people have always done. This is what America's going to be about. This is no, everything's changing every day. That means every day the person who's in your house is new. And
Mm.
every day when they speak to you, you have to tune in and hear them and listen
Mm.
because yesterday was yesterday. Today is a new person. And some things may carry over and some things may not. But you have to discover that. That means that while you're in a relationship, you have to be curious, right? Um, and like Mashama said, being humble. Like, you know, that right and wrong thing, let it go. Focus on the big picture. You know,
Mm.
first of all, always remind yourself you're not gonna be here forever. Right? And you gotta think about it. You're only here for this short period of time. What really matters?
Yeah.
Mm.
If your wife says, I think this yellow looks better on the wall, and you're like, I don't think so. I think burgundy and somehow, and then she tells you this deep story about how this yellow means so much to her, all of a sudden that yellow should look the best on the wall, let it go. Right? Or if you feel you're right and you realize that you being right is coming off too dominant at the moment, back up. Back
Mm.
up. Just hey, and apologize. Apologize sometimes that you hurt that person, even if you feel you were right. Don't say
Mm.
I apologize, although I was right. That's not an apology. Say, you know what, I did it to you, and I'm so sorry for that. And
Mm.
that's not what I'm here. I'm not meant to hurt you. And then move on away from that. Don't go back and try to prove you were right. Right? Let go of that whole right and wrong dance and rhythm, fairness. Let it go.
Mm.
Relationships are not 50-50, they're 80-20, and they go back and forth all the time. Sometimes I'm doing 80, sometimes I'm doing 20. That whole 50-50, it betrays us. It puts
Mm.
a relationship that starts to cause fracture in the relationship, right?
Yeah.
Um, love ain't it's not gonna be like the first day every day. Some days you'll be like, I love you. And some days you'll be like, please, just give me a minute by myself. That's what love is. It's a journey together. It's not living in bliss all time, right? I think, and it's just, I mean, when I say I'm tapping the surface, Dr. Webb, that's a hard question, man. That's a hard question.
Yeah, and the essence of what I'm hearing from both of you, I mean, there's so much messaging here. There's so many gems. And that is that you've got to continuously do work on self.
Oh, huge.
And that's critical to leadership in all the spaces that you reside. And foremost, if it's not happening in your home with your relations, then you're likely not an effective leader when you're in the workspace. Because as Mashama indicates, it's not here and then there. Some of us think that we can put on a face. I remember growing up in the streets of LA as a kid, and brothers and sisters putting on their hard face so that they wouldn't be harmed by something or someone. And the harm was real. It wasn't imagined. It was real. It didn't matter whether it was a police or whether it was a someone who's trying to be a gang member or even someone who's just stupid. It really didn't matter. So these faces were real. And then they got home. They were able to relieve themselves and take off that face. In reality, they never took it off. In reality, what they were portraying outside and inside literally never left. The issue is, and then to say that it is different leads to the kinds of fracturing of our personalities that undermine our well-being mentally, let alone physically and spiritually, if you believe in the spiritual realm, which I think is at the core of who we are. So I want you to just state for the record.
Ooh, for the record. Uh-oh.
Yeah, for the record.
It's going to come back when I run for president.
Listen, you're so transparent, Mashama. And really, if you were to describe leadership in 1, 2, or 3 words, how would you describe it for you?
I can't do it in those words, but I will say this, and I'll let Nana clean it up. If you are a human on earth, everything you've ever experienced, everything you will experience, has only happened in your head. The sooner you realize that, the better off you will be. That is the only thing that will enable you to be a leader, is once you realize that everything that is happening to you only happens in your head, and everything that happens to everybody else only happens in theirs. A leader then has that empathy that Nana was talking about and tries to lob ideas and help that person along their path and their journey. And that's whether it's personal, whether it's branding, whatever you're doing, the idea is to deliver value to that person, but everything they ever experience is going to be processed through their lens, through their eyes, their physical makeup, every experience they've had. They construct that world. You construct your own world. As soon as you realize that you're in this silo and we kind of have agreed upon a shared reality, you can then start to show up for other people. And that's what leadership is about, is your ability to show up to another person and add value to their life, show them a path, help them along their journey. And that's the part that Nana was saying, is when you make it about other people, not about your experience and your ego, you make it about other people, then you're leading. And again, like I said before, leadership is conferred. People see that. People see people who show up for other people. It is plain. It is plain as day. And so the gravity and that attraction will just start happening. People say, hey, can you talk to me about this? Can I take you to coffee? Can I take you to lunch? Can I pick your brain? Like that, those things will just start happening when you start to show up for other people.
Yes. Powerful.
That was a lot of words. Go ahead, Nana. Now you got to do it in 3.
All right, let's see here. I would definitely say one is going to be curiosity. I mean, when you're curious, I spend an hour and a half learning a day, minimal. I'm curious. And I think part of being a leadership is that otherwise you're leading from your ego. You're not leading. You're not taking the responsibility to help others, because you're trying to help others and you're trying to figure out what do they need. If you're not curious, you're just trying to give them what you think they need, right? And if you give them what you think they need, often you fail them. So being extremely curious. Two, accept that you don't have control. Don't have control. It's a dance. It's just a dance. It's inspiring. It's informing. It's enlightening. It's supporting. It's loving. It's touching. It's not pulling somebody. It's not dragging somebody. Last, and I know this is probably, I'm just lobbing this one from, since Mashama already hit the core points. Learn to lead from 360 degrees. And so what I mean by that, don't look at life one way and try to lead from that. Look at the complete circle. I think quite often we tell these stories of success. It sounds so amazing. But we often forget to tell the stories of failure.
Yes.
Which amazing people failed.
Yeah.
And I think by us gaining access to the full 360 degrees of everything they're engaging in this leadership thing, we can show with authenticity, right? If we show that 180, we sound inspiring and motivational. Like we sound like cheerleaders, right? But when you can tell somebody and hold that and speak from 360 degrees of insight of both sides, the good, the bad, the great and not so great, right? Where you can accept a person being human, but also being amazing, but still being a human, right? If you can see all that, I think your leadership goes to a whole different level because it even shapes expectations. So those are a few little small nuggets I want to add, but these are some big questions.
Yeah. Well, intentionally so. Yeah. And at the core of what you've been talking about for this entire, oh my goodness, it's almost an hour. I haven't even brought up the questions. Is the importance of authenticity. Yeah. Engagement, learning, moving, authenticity, creativity, insight, leveraging, being in service to, authenticity. Yeah. Jet, would you bring up one of the questions? And in the meantime, I want to, leadership has so many definitions. I'm struggling to find my own style that works. Any suggestions? Well, I think some of what you've shared answers that, but I don't know if you want to add anything to that. And then I want to bring up another question too, right after that.
You know,
definition is.
Only thing I would challenge is remove yourself from the micro looking at leadership as styles, because leadership needs to be flexible. I mean that depending on what you're dealing with and who you're dealing with, leadership needs to be able to adapt, right? And so if I was leading a Me Too, a group of women who are really passionate about Me Too, I would adapt, right? If I'm leading a group of guys at a auto garage, I would adapt, right? And so being adaptable is more important than locking yourself into a style that's too static. Excellent.
And so Aisha writes, is there somewhere I can find a recording of this session? Oh, definitely. I wanted to share it with others, including my daughters. So much emotional intelligence, spiritual groundedness, and wisdom here. Yes, to Maisha and everyone else who's viewing now, and then others will view later. This is uploaded to YouTube. It's on Roku TV, Amazon TV, and of course, Facebook keeps an account. So yes, it will be up and running within a half an hour at the end of the show. And Jet, could you bring up another question? My background is in the technology world. Now, as an executive, I deal daily with folks who believe they know it all. Yet the .com era was not that long ago. I think he's referencing the fact that there was a lot of know-it-alls who lost it big time, and the investors likewise. So how do I avoid this syndrome is what he's asking.
Yeah, I would say see the people, not the comment. If you understand their motivations, all those things start to become clear. If you really, again, leadership is the baseline human OS has not changed. All the context and culture has changed, but who we are, like what we need to be seen, to be heard, to be understood, that has not changed. So start to see the individual people. I'm assuming you said folks, you're lumping a bunch of people that together that are all know-it-alls. And they probably show up with that air, but your job as the leader is to figure out why. Okay, what motivates Nana? Why does he think he needs to know it all? Does he know that questions are more powerful than answers? How do you start to work on that human being? Right? How do you start to understand? Once they start to feel that relationship, that inquisitiveness, that curiosity that Nana was talking about, all those barriers start to fall down because they know you're generally invested in them. In corporate environments, everybody's siloed off, right? Everybody's covering your own, you know what, right? A great leader breaks that down, destroys that idea. We're together, right? We're together. We're a team. This is the camaraderie that you could build erases a lot of those problems because now you see the team and you see the individuals. And you know that when you're talking to Nana or you're talking to Dr. Webb, those conversations are fundamentally different, even if they have the same comment.
Also, let me add real quick. Be careful labeling and mislabeling people. I'm going to support this. I'm kind of dive a little bit further to some of the points that Mashama just highlighted. When you label, you build a wall up. When you build a wall, guess who gets stuck behind the wall? You do. So after a while, you're locked in your wall and you become imprisoned by your belief system, by these labels that you put on other people, right? That's why it's so important to see people. Otherwise, you imprison yourself. That's one.
Powerful.
Number two, when human beings have a certain behavior, stop focusing on the results or the outcomes. Look at the causation. Outcomes put you in a whack-a-mole role, and it becomes exhausting, right? Once you understand a causation, you're able to move in an organization around causation, it actually can empower you. You can actually understand how to pull levers and change people behavior change human habits, right? Because you're able to pull these levers because you understand what's the drive. Are people seeking status? Is fear the dominant energy in that room? So maybe you come in a room with comfort. Maybe you learn how to create safe communication, safe environment, and all of a sudden everybody wants to work for you. All of a sudden everybody's like, why do we like him so much, right? Because at the end of the day, remember when we're talking about people growing in business and whatever, it's all about people liking people. It's not always about qualifications, right? Or skills or tactics. You'll often find that the most talented people are usually not at the top. It's the most charismatic people. And so go back to some of these people principles. The people like Mashama said, the human operating system hasn't changed. Study, learn, understand human beings, and you can navigate those complexities.
And I know
the only thing I would add, I think I have one sentence that can sum it up. Be a leader, not a boss.
Think about that. Be a leader, not a boss. Jet, another question. Maybe we can quickly go through that. My wife and I do well in our businesses, yet at home it is a different deal. I expect her to change, and she expects me to meet her needs in ways that I've never done. Bewildered. Sounds like someone's confused.
I can't do advice on this at all. 0%.
Let me share macro. I don't want to touch micro. So I don't want to talk about their relationship because and that's one particular angle. And the thing we didn't mention earlier, because we're entrepreneurs, we understand the power of biases. There's things we can't see. Biases are mental things we can't see. So we surround ourselves with other entrepreneurs to help us avoid becoming victimized by our biases. In our own household, we create systems to prevent our biases from damaging our family relationships. In addition, I would even tell some people, it's probably good every once in a while to even go seek out counseling, so a counselor can help you see past your own biases. So in your personal relationship, that's a different discussion. Now, let's talk about business from a venture capitalist. Venture capitalists usually don't like to talk touch relationship-based businesses, because usually as they start to grow, there's a collapse, right? Because it's a relationship. What they found is that because of the amount of attention that the business puts on a relationship, it's best that one just takes the business, the other one plays a distant support role, but let the other person pretty much run that journey. Has it worked before? Yes. Does it? But it's kind of more of a rare thing. So that's kind of the nature of going into business together, because a lot of the tension and stressors that come from running a business puts a lot of pressure on relationships, and relationships need their own room and space to grow. And so I'm gonna stay away from getting deep into that discussion, because I don't want the person who asked that question in there, because for a person to ask that question, there's a certain amount of humility and humbleness that they engage that question, and I want to honor that.
Yeah, and I want to honor that you're honoring it, and just echo the importance of going within and understanding what works for the self, and encouraging that in one's relationship. And I understand it from personal experience. I don't understand it from a current experience, and I leverage the two of you and others who have worked through a lot to make certain that your relationships are healthy. Not perfect, because you don't seek perfection.
That's right.
You seek growth, which is qualitatively different. And when we're in a space where we have shared values, we know it's all about growth. We honor the other as being 100% already whole, and recognizing the self is already whole, and that growth just magnifies the potential of the current individual. And then all of a sudden, the possibilities are much grander than what we would otherwise consider. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much to you two brilliant men who are working in partnership in ways that are just great examples for the rest of us, not only in your businesses and your business ventures within 510 Media, yet also especially with your families. Thank you for being humble, choosing to be healthy, choosing to lead, and lead with integrity. It's an honor always.
Thank you, Dr. Webb. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.